Welcome back, everybody. Well, I lied to you in the last video. The last video, I told you in the next video, I was going to show you this concrete going down, but I don't have that ready to go yet. So we're going to title today's video, what do you need to do before sheetrock comes? Because I have sheetrock coming next Tuesday, and I'm going to try to get everything buttoned up before they get here, but my brain has been in overdrive trying to figure out every little thing that needs to be done prior to it going up. But that's what we're going to work on today. I did get my insulation put in the exterior walls. I still like my ceilings to go after we get ceilings finished and get everything tied together in the attic. But if you've not been here before, I did a closed cell spray foam flash coat on all the exterior walls. But I actually had those guys come in here prior to any electrical or plumbing coming in. They had a clean slate, nothing in their way, so they was able to get us sealed off tight on the exterior. And then with 2x6 exterior walls, plumber and electrician, they still had room to work in that wall cavity. So I've got about an inch of spray foam on the exterior, and then we've got an R19 in the exterior walls. And one other thing that I did from an insulation standpoint is I used an R13 in between my living spaces. So obviously I'm standing in the kitchen, great living room, whatever you want to call it. But then we got bedrooms essentially in every corner of the house. And so I've put up basically a sound barrier with this R13. Anywhere where there's two living spaces meeting each other, I went ahead and insulated. Because when you got 3 yard apes that live with you, they make a lot of noise and racket, and so I want to keep this place as quiet as I can. So that's the reason I've kindly give us a sound barrier in between the living spaces, so maybe we can live in a little more peace. Now, I didn't want to have to do this, but obviously I'm had to do it. I searched for a one-piece fiberglass shower. That's all we're putting in the master bathroom. I did not want to have to lay tile, but I couldn't find one big as we wanted it, so ended up putting a fiberglass base, and then I'm gonna have to tile above it. So I got this finished up, got all my hardy backer on the board, in which I'll go ahead and tile this ceiling as well. That one's done. And in here in my daughter's bathroom, I've got the hardy backer up around her shower as well, so that one's ready. And last but not least, I've got to knock the boys' bathroom out. Now, I like hardy backer as an underlayment for tile, and that's what I typically use when I lay it. But I'll lay tile, I'll have a project every 4 or 5 years, so I don't do it much, but every time I do it, I dread cutting this stuff because I've tried everything. Tile saws, grinders. Grinder works well with the right cutting wheel, but it makes so much dust. Scorting and breaking it, and you name it, I've tried it, and I hate them all. But I thought I'd try jigsaw this time, so I went to Lowe's and bought a carbide ceramic blade, and it's got like a sandpaper grit for the cutting teeth. I used it for those 2 bathrooms in there, and the master bathroom was the first one I did, and every piece of that I had to trim it or cut it just a little bit, and blade held up well through it. The second bathroom, it started to slow down on me a little bit, so I've bought another one to finish this 3rd bathroom out, but it's worked pretty well so far, and it doesn't put off so much dust. So cutting it inside in here, I didn't want it to be a cloud of dust in here with that grinder. So it's worked so far, and I don't know that you'd want to use it in a commercial application every day, but most people's got a jigsaw, and if you've never tried to cut this stuff, it's a pain in the butt. I've got to cut a hole here for my shower head, so I've got a 5/8 masonry bit. I'll drill me a hole, and we'll take that jigsaw and cut it out. Now outside, I'm just adding a few more screws. Pretty well gets this taken care of. I'll have tile come around the top, and then they'll have a border come down the edge of the tub. But what I did was I ran my backer board out. a 1/2 inch past the framing. That way my sheetrock will lay in here flush. But then I'll have my mud man come back and I'll have him use plastic corner bead. I don't want metal in here just for case it might rust later on down the road. But I'll have him finish this side with drywall, and then I'll have that crisp line up through there to work off of. So I'll waterproof all this, and then when the mortar comes back with my tile, I'll lay up here, and then I'll take one of those little 90-degree edge trims for tile. It'll slip in right here flush with my plastic corner bead, and that ought to make for a neat joint and a neat transition from tile to sheetrock. And hopefully it'll look pretty good. All right, next on the agenda, the fireplace. This, where I have OSB on it, will get stone, so they'll lay stone out on 3 sides. But I'll have a 36-inch cabinet here, 36-inch cabinet there, and then shelves. So I've put some outlets in here. You know, you never know when you might need to plug something up. But the TV will mount to the fireplace, and so when I built it, I added blocking in here where you can screw the TV to, and then a place for the mantle to mount. That way you got something solid behind it. But in case I need to run a wire from the TV over here to maybe some equipment, I'm gonna add some conduit in here. So I'm gonna go in the back side, add my conduit, and we'll poke it through. I got my 2 holes drilled, so now all I'll do is take this 2-inch PVC, and basically I'll loop it from this hole over to this one. I'll let it stick out maybe 1 inch, and then when they lay their stone, they can go right around that, and I'll paint the end of it black so it don't stick out. Then if you ever need to fish any wires back to back your TV over to any equipment, you can do it without having to wrap it around the corner. All right, that wraps that up. Conduit's in. I went ahead and put my electric out here for a place to plug my TV up. I set my box out about 1.5 inches because that stone will stick out 1.5 inches to 2 inches. And then I went ahead and put a coat of paint on the end of my pipe, so that way when they stone around that, it'll just look like a black hole. But that one will not be visible, but this one, you would be able to see it. So I think when the stone goes around it, it'll blend in. Let's move on to something else. All right, the sun has rose again. Next up, we are living in this barn over here now. And when I built that, I set it up for a woodworking shop work area, and that's the way it's laid out. I just made some adjustments to where we could live in it. But out here in the shed, I've got power ran for a air compressor. I wanted the air compressor and the dust system to be outside, that way you ain't got to listen to it run. But I thought when I was forming up for this house it'd be nice to have air in here and not have to have another compressor. So what I did was I have conduit running up through my footer, and it stubs out in this corner. So before I put my concrete in, I run a piece of conduit out here under my apron. And so what I'm going to do today is dig this up, and I'm gonna run my air line out of PEX. We'll see how it works. But I've got to get it fished in from here into there and get it terminated, so when my sheetrock goes in, I'll have all that done. Curious if anybody's out there, if they've used PEX for airline. I hope it holds up and works, but I'm going to continue when I get everything else kind of underway. I'll continue my conduit from here over to that building, run it over there to where my air compressor is going to be located, and then that 1/2 inch line will just run through it. I know you get condensation in them. I'll have to figure out how to deal with that, but at least we'll have our air hose over here. All right, pipe is still there. I'll pull me a string through there in the house, and we'll pull this water line through here, and I'll just leave it rolled up here for now, and then we will tackle this another day. made it through. I'll hook me a little bigger rope on that. We'll pull that water line through there. All right, I got my pull rope in there and I'm connected to my pipe. Just need somebody on the other end to pull. All right, the winch has showed up, finally. You're in that 90 now, so you have to kind of, let's push and pull to get it started. You have to get grunt and grind.
I can't go.
You come out here.
What?
Come out here, let me pull it. All right, that's got that hooked up. I used a shower head connector so I could screw it into my block. Obviously got my pegs tied into it, and then I screwed a 6-inch black iron nipple on it. So once sheetrock goes in, I'll have this exposed so I'll be able to hook onto it. Hopefully we'll be able to pump a bicycle tire up. All right, next on the agenda is internet. As bad as I hate to admit it, the internet is about like needing electricity now. You use it for everything. So I've got a couple good buddies that are network guys, and I want to try to get this house balanced and set up to where, you know, everything pretty much is wireless now. So I want to get it to where you've got the same signal in front of the house as you do the back of the house. So I'm going to use my breezeway in here as sort of my center location, and then I'm going to have some access points throughout the house, and then we're going to put one actually out next to the swimming pool where if you're outside and you want to get on your phone and you need internet, you'll have access to wireless, and it should be a good signal. Should have it all covered. So I've got some Cat 6 wire here I'm going to pull. It's shielded wire. Probably didn't need shielded, but for not much more money, I went ahead and put shielded. That way you don't get any interference. But I'll have to run from here as well back over to the garage over across the lot. So fiber will come in, and then I'll feed that building with an access point, and then I will have 3 access points besides my router in this house. So let's pull some wire. I didn't have anything to hold my wire, so I built me a little box here, used a concrete stake so I can sit here and pull my wire off from up in the breezeway. That way it won't be rolling all over the place. And one other thing that I'm doing in here is I'm running this Ethernet cable for cameras versus the wireless. I will go ahead and hardwire everything in, and then we'll do power over Ethernet. That way you ain't got to worry about changing batteries. Well, one thing I did the other day is my ductwork is elevated up here in the attic. So in order to get from the back side of the house over to the front, you'd had to try to either shimmied under that ductwork down there in that insulation or climbed over the top of it. So I just made a catwalk from my access hole over there in the breezeway up above it, and then I can come all the way over to the front side of the house, and then I've got a little platform here at my window so I can step across these little runners and get to the front side of the house. Here's the other side. I basically just went in this crotch and nailed some 2x6s. That way you can walk up above your ductwork, not be rolling around the insulation and miss a truss and then fall through the ceiling. Okay. All right, I think I've got all the wires pulled that I need. This will sort of be my central location. We'll use this room sort of as an office, but this will feed all the cameras, and I've got everything labeled where they go. And then I did run one Ethernet port down here. That way if you did want to plug a computer up. But then I'll have a router here, so I went ahead and put power. and then I'll have my switch box for my camera system, but those will be powered over Ethernet, so I won't have to have electric at the locations where the camera's at. But the brain will be here. But then from an internet standpoint, what I've done is I'll have a router, but I'll have I have 4 other access points that'll basically boost that signal. So I've got an Ethernet cable running from here over to those locations. So I'll have one back here in this hallway, one back in this hallway. Then I've got to build a porch here, and so I've got an exterior access point that'll mount out here. So when you're outside, sitting out here on the porch or something, you'll have access to the internet. But I went ahead and run my electric through the wall, and then I'll run my Ethernet through the wall as well, which I'll end up putting those back in conduit once I get my shed built, and I've got enough wire here to where I can bring it out here and terminate it and do what I need to do. I also added a USB cable to a little low voltage box here, and then I put 120 beside it. This will be in the corner of the kitchen area and then the living room area, so it'll be a central location. But that USB cable goes back over to my little command center, if you want to call it, where everything comes in from an Ethernet and USB, and that's where the cameras will be hooked up. But you will be able to get a direct feed to a TV here if you did want to just sit and, you know, watch the cameras or see who's pulling up the driveway. You'll have it here. And then, you know, change the HDMI port on the remote. You can flip it over to a TV. If there's a ball game on while you're eating supper, you'll be able to watch it. Then last but not least, I went ahead, when the fiber company come up and did their site survey, I went ahead and had them to give me a box. That way, when they come, all they'll have to do is pull their wire in or pull the fiber in through the conduit. So I'd already run the orange pipe, if you can see it down in there, conduit from the entry point over at the power box, but I didn't want that big orange conduit coming up, so I've just left this loose so they can slide that off, pull their fiber through it, and then I went ahead and just roughly cut me a piece of conduit here, so that'll be under the ground, so all you'll see is a little piece of gray pipe coming up. And then I've got conduit going out the back side of that. It comes in down here, runs up, and then it feeds into the bottom side of my low voltage box. So when I disconnect the fiber from that building, we will run it through the conduit over here, and then I will take Ethernet from here, loop it back around back to that building, and then I'll have an access point over there, so we'll have continued access to the internet on that building as well. Next up, we were originally going to just leave this as an 8-foot cased opening, but we've decided we're going to put a door. So I got to drop it down here and build this door frame in. Luckily, my rough opening's 38 inches, so I'm good there for a 36-inch door. Let's build a little header. We'll move on to something else. Well, I almost forgot this one, but the insulation was covering my conduit up, but I have a piece of 1.5 inches going out, in which I've got conduit tied on it on the outside. That conduit comes out of that corner under the concrete, wraps around the porch, and then I will continue it on down to the pond. That way, if I ever need electricity down there, I'll have it. Probably put some kind of aerator on the pond, keep that algae down in the summertime, but it'll tie on to conduit here. Once I run my gutter downspout here out, I'll continue it in that ditch. And I bought UF cable, so it's underground rated. So once I get past danger, I'll probably just let it run direct bury all the way down the pond. Alright, wire is in, and I went ahead and run it over and tied it into the panel, so we've got that complete. I would have had this done before insulation was put in the wall, but my wire didn't come in. So I went ahead and drilled the hole, so that made it a little bit easier. But with that insulation being there, I almost forgot. I'm glad I didn't. Well, the list is getting smaller, and I'd say I've bored you enough, but I'll show you just a couple more things that I've done too in sort of preparation, hoping that I, think of everything. I'll probably forget something, but I'll show you a couple things that I've done. Maybe if you're building one, it might help you. Now in this garage, I've got a 16-foot ceiling, and when I was laying it out, I was gonna put the boys' basketball goal in here, so I went ahead and added extra blocking above my door so that way that goal can mount there. Now, one other thing that I did in this corner besides put air is I wanted a sub panel here. So I wanted to be able to have access to power once sheetrock goes in, but I wanted it out from the wall. That way I could tie conduit into it. So what I did, I had a piece of butcher block countertop. I cut a 5/8" gap behind it. So when they hang their sheetrock, it'll slide right behind that mortised area. And then I put the bottom here to where a 4-foot piece would come right up against the bottom. But that seam will be hid, and then I'll be able to access it later on. And the bathrooms, I went ahead and tried to think of where we may hang towel holders at. So I put one here for hand towels, and then over here for your bath towels, place you could hang them up. In all the bedrooms, I went ahead and blocked up headers in for where a TV mount would go, and then I put a plug above those. One thing you definitely don't want to forget is your pocket doors if you're using them. I think I've got 7 of them in here, so I got those put in the other night. In the master bedroom, I've got a place for the TV, and then I've got my electric run to that. But then I'm gonna do some kind of cantilevered shelf here. I don't know exactly, I ain't got it designed just yet, but I went ahead and added me some blocking in there about the height I would put it. Again, in the bathrooms, got a place for towels, and then next to your commodes, went ahead and added some blocking in for where your toilet paper holder will screw to the wall. One other thing that I am going to do is where my sole plate meets the concrete, I'm going to caulk it, and I'll go around all the exterior walls and do that. There is a weatherproof membrane underneath all my sole plates already, but I figure it can't hurt. We'll just seal that gap with some caulk. It's a big stretch caulk and seal your windows, doors, siding, so it's supposed to give and move, so that'll just be a little extra insurance. As I will put an electrical outlet right here at my overhang on my porch, so if you ever did want to put Christmas lights on, you plug it in right there. Well, the last big project before the sheetrockers come is going in here and cleaning everything out of this house. I want all the materials, all the tools out. That way when the sheetrock guys come, they got nothing in their way. But anyway, building a house, it's easy to think about the big stuff. Who's gonna frame it and who's gonna put a roof on, who'll, pour your concrete. But all these little things, they just add up and they add up and they add up. And you hope you don't forget something, but I probably have. But you'll see this video on Christmas Day, so it'll be a little prior to the sheetrock coming. So if you see something here that I have forgot, leave it in the comments. I'd appreciate it. But I'm not a big birthday guy, but obviously Christmas is a birthday that I appreciate and thankful for. But anyway, if you watch this one, I appreciate it, and I hope everybody out there that does watch this, I hope you have a good Christmas.